again, just like the back piece, I'm just going to unscrew these by hand. If they're in there too tight, there's a flathead, there's a spot for a flathead screwdriver on these and on the back ones. For your toggle switch, if you've got one, you can just unscrew that ring that goes around it. If you have a 5-setting switch, chances are you can pull it out from the back. If you've got a pick guard on here, just unscrew the screws that go around the pick guard and pull it off, and then you can look at the inside and take things off that way as well. They shouldn't be this loose. If they are, you can take them off by hand like I'm doing, and if they're not, obviously just use a socket. You don't even need a deep socket for this probably. Alright, so now my dials will come out the other side, the pots are all loosened up. So I'm going to flip this over and unscrew the neck. And let's see, this number 2 Phillips for mine. Yours might be different, but I doubt it. If it's a set neck or a neck through design, obviously you're not going to take this off. You'll have to tape off your fretboard and paint that way. If that's the case, then a couple different styles of tuners, you'll need to take those off as well to paint if you're painting your headstock and your neck, which I'm not. So they will either have these hex nuts in the front, which you can pull off, and then the whole tuner will drop out the back. And I just realized that I need to tighten these up. Or they'll have 4 screws in the back, or sorry, 2 screws each in the back that you take off, and then you pull them out. I'm going to start working on getting these pickups out of here. So let's take the pickup rings out. I think, as it turns out, this bit is sharp enough to deal with these tiny screws, but in some cases it won't be. That's why I have this tiny little screwdriver handy. Okay, so there we have our pickups. This one needs a new spring. Not sure how that happened. No, found it. Never mind. So, the pickup should be held on by a screw with a spring around it. Okay? Just like that. Here's your spring. There's a screw in there. So we'll just undo those screws, and that's how you adjust the height of the pickup when you're actually using the guitar. So we'll just take those screws out. For now, that's it for the front of the guitar. Let's flip it over. I'm going to take these set screw rings out of here, these countersink rings out of here, like I said. Those are just so that the screws don't bite into the wood too much when you're tightening down the neck. On a lot of guitars there will be a plate back there instead of those. For example, on the Fenders and such. Most Fenders. So you would just take that plate off. That'll come off when you unscrew the neck. So let's take off the cover. This one's still got the protective plastic on it. So you might want to take that off. It's up to you, particularly if you're planning on painting that along with the rest of the guitar, which I probably will in this case. So now our electronics should pretty much pull out from the back here, our dials and stuff. What we're going to have to do is disconnect them from the pickups and from the output jack, which in this case is over here. So there are 2 ways to do this. You can either take your soldering iron and disconnect them from the points to which they are soldered. See? Or you can cut the wires and then solder them back together after. I'm going to start by taking off the output jack so I know exactly what I'm dealing with. Alright, so for this guitar I have two connections coming to the output jack. It should invariably be that way. Two connections, one for the outer ring, one for the inner. So I'm going to start by using the soldering iron to disconnect those. I'll zoom in on that so you can see how that's done. Alright, so always make a note of how this goes. In this case, my inner ring here, the lower part, is the silver, and the outer one, the upper part, is the white one. So I'm just going to disconnect those using my soldering iron. See, there's the white one. Try not to burn yourself. I've burned myself with the soldering iron before. I pressed it right against my knuckle once by accident, and I literally cooked the skin. It turned an odd shade of white, kind of like cooked chicken. So avoid that if you can. There we go. Okay, I've pulled the wires through with the pickups now. That was pretty simple. Now I've got this ground wire. Okay, I believe the ground wire is running to one of the studs that holds the bridge in. Okay, I'm not going to be taking those out, so I'm going to leave this ground wire in place. So that's how you disassemble a guitar. All I've got left now is the wood, except for my ground wire and the 4 mounting studs. So the next order of business is going to be sanding this down. I'm using auto air paints on it, so I'm going to sand it at 600. 600 grit is probably a good bet regardless. You can do this wet if you want to avoid dust, that way you don't have to wear a mask, but I don't recommend that because if you get water on exposed wood, it can cause it to expand, and that can be really bad for your instrument. So I'd recommend just wearing a dust mask and sanding this down. The idea is you need to make sure, see if you get this reflection across the guitar, you need to make sure you get rid of all of that. Try not to sand all the way through your clear coat if you can avoid it, or all the way through your paint unless you're doing a finish that requires a wood grain to show through. Just scuff it up so that it's not shiny anymore, it's not reflective, and then it'll be ready to paint. So that's it for this video. I don't think you guys need me to show you how to sand. I will show you what it looks like sanded in my next video. Thank you, and see you later.